Welcome to Lawyers, Guns and Money on the Thaiger. Thank you very much for joining us as we look at the various vagaries of the law around Thailand. And as usual, we speak to Ben Hart from Integrity Legal. Hi, Ben.
Good to see you, Tim.
Good to see you too. So today we're talking about, very generally, not a particular law, but the issue of guns.
Sure.
Now, as an American, of course, you've got your own relationship with guns in America, which is sort of unique in the world. But here in Thailand, can you give us a bit of a broad overview about what gun ownership is like in Thailand?
Well, it's pretty restricted. I mean, it's on a registration licensing basis. Now, a key point with respect to foreigners, there was a time, and I believe that time ended, about 5 years ago, they amended relevant laws and regulations. There was a time when a foreign national with permanent residence could own a firearm in Thailand. And again, registration applied, licensing applied. You couldn't just go buy one and just have it. But yes, it was possible for a foreign national to possess a firearm in Thailand. That time is gone. Back about 5 years ago, they essentially amended, if you want to call it that, or put more restrictions on, and now only Thai nationals can get a license to have a firearm in Thailand. And the licensing process is pretty stringent. It's not, you have to go through what we call in the U.S., or what I call back home in Kansas, it was called hunter safety, where you have to learn to use it, you have to learn how to be careful with it. Unfortunately, I'm actually a pretty big gun advocate in the sense of the Second Amendment from a legal standpoint. From a practical standpoint, it's probably good that people know how to use these things if they're going to be possessing them. But in Thailand, obviously, very different kind of regime, and you're dealing with a lot of restrictions and a lot of licensure, and effectively, it's basically ruled out for foreign nationals. Now, usage is not necessarily, like, people go to gun ranges and things here all the time and fire and do things like that.
Sometimes at themselves.
Well, perhaps, you never know.
From time to time.
Yeah, well, yeah. But ownership is a major issue, and that is not going to be allowed for foreign nationals here.
But we get the impression that guns are quite prevalent in Thailand. We hear about gun violence, not anywhere near as often as we do in the US, but gun violence does tend to be a thing in Thailand.
I think it's, and now we're kind of just talking speculatively, not so much in the legal realm. I think it's more to do with geography. It's just, up until especially COVID, Thailand had a pretty, let's say, porous border in different places, and there were a lot of places, notably Cambodia and Myanmar, that probably had a lot of firearms in them. And then going back 30 odd years, we had the Vietnam War that caused a lot of, I'm sure there was a proliferation of firearms throughout the region as a result of that. And when you get back into 30 years ago, I mean, law enforcement's capabilities were a little more truncated than they are now. So, yeah, I do think, at the street level, for lack of a better term, you probably are talking about not an insignificant number of guns that may be around. Although, when this latest government took over, right after they took over, I remember there was a lot of talk, at least in the media, about they were finding these caches of firearms, they were arresting people with caches of firearms. So, maybe now that may not quite be the case as it once was.
If you are a US citizen and in your own country you have the right to bear arms and you come to Thailand, you're not really able to pack that in your luggage and bring it here.
No, leave that at home. There may be some circumstances, no, not here. There are circumstances where people go overseas to places for like hunting expeditions and things like that, and there's licensing schemes that you have to go through to be able to bring a firearm through. It can happen. I've seen it happen. I've dealt with it under certain circumstances, but here in Thailand, that's pretty well a no-go. That's probably not going to happen.
All right, so a little bit about gun ownership in Thailand. As a foreigner, you can't own a gun. There are still guns around the place. Obviously, they're things you try and avoid here in Thailand, because most of the stories we print at the Thaiger, people wielding guns when they're under the influence of something that affects their behaviour.
A practical note on that kind of crazy stuff: the Thai police take guns pretty darn seriously, especially where foreign nationals are concerned. So, you know, I know people come to Thailand because it's got a Mai Pin Rai attitude, and it is great. I love Thailand. It's very laid back. It's not. I love living here for a lot of different reasons. But if you're looking to, you know, mess around with your firearms, this may not be the jurisdiction to come to, because the Thai police, they take that real seriously.
They all carry guns, Thai police?
For the most part. I don't know any uniformed police officers that don't carry firearms. So yeah, and we're talking about, would we really love it if like huge numbers of foreign nationals came to our country and were running around brandishing firearms?
No.
I don't know if we would, you know.
Right. So there you are, a bit about guns. Thank you, Ben Hart from Integrity Legal.
Thanks very much.
Who didn't bring a gun in today.
No, of course
and,
not.
we have the right to bear arms,
Yes.
both of us.
And we do. Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us on Lawyers, Guns and Money. We'll have another one soon.